If you're looking for a raised Mazda 3, you don't really have to look any further. Today, Coast Mazda has given us the 2022 Mazda CX-30 in the new polymetal gray metallic. The raised up, rugged Mazda 3 SUV keeps the performance styling cues with standard LED headlamps. Inside, the new CX adds that racy red leather seating, updated tech and safety, rivals like your Lexus UX, your Volkswagen Taos, so it's literally luxury to an everyday drive, all blended in. I'm Anthony from Hawkeye Rides, and we're going to go over all the specs and details starting now. The new Mazda CX-30 has finally implemented the Carbon Edition. It's a little late on the roster, however, it's definitely something that we would like. Starting with the fascia, we're going to get 8 inches of clearance, matte black on the lower, a sleek turn signals integrate into the lower matte black bumper. The chrome wings wrap under the 3-dimensional gloss black grille, all integrating into these LED headlamps and your daytime running with a nice wide stance proportion at 70.7 inches, a height at 61.7 inches. So when you're comparing this against the Lexus or even against the Volkswagen, this is going to have a bit of an athletic and luxury with it mixed. And if you're looking at it as the raised up Mazda 3 hatch, you can definitely tell that the proportion is going to be a little bit more, but it's actually a little bit smaller in this. A long flat hood that helps with visibility. That matte black is going to keep tapering and going around your fenders. That's going to encase these 18-inch 5 double spoke gloss black alloy wheels. The disc reading behind it at 11.6 inches, the rear at 11.9. Independent McPherson strut front suspension, a Torsen beam in the rear, G-Vectoring Control Plus, iActive all-wheel drive. The length is going to be smaller than the hatch and that Lexus at 173 inches with a wheelbase at 104.4 inches. The CX adds a rear window to the back, which is actually a lot better than the hatchback, because what happens is all this area here is blind spot, but it now opens it up a little bit so it's not as bad. You're going to receive the chrome that's going to wrap around, S-curve around the doors that capture the light and shadow, so it gives a two-tone effect, basically a motion image, so even when the vehicle is sitting still, it looks like it's still moving, which you're not going to get that in the Lexus. Silver for your roof rails that go into this lower roof spoiler. The gloss black is going to be all over the top, which gives a sporty styling to the rear. Dark combination LED tail lamps, and then on the lower bumper, it's going to be all matte black, which I wish here they implemented a little bit of gloss to just set it in between of these dual exhaust outlets, because it would just set it apart from the Lexus or the Volkswagen. Towing is going to be more in this at 2,000 pounds, going inside to your cargo at 20.2 cubic feet. You have your spare tire tucked underneath. The rear bench split folds at a 60-40 split to max that cargo at 45.2 cubic feet, which is more than the Lexus and the Taos. You know what? It's a 2.5 liter inline 4-cylinder. Let's hear that exhaust note. Modern styling, luxury, and performance is basically the blend that you get with Mazda, and they back the performance of the 2.5 liter SkyActiv G inline 4-cylinder, producing 186 horsepower and 186 pound-feet of torque. That's paired to a SkyActiv Drive 6-speed automatic transmission, achieving 24 to 31 mpgs. That's good for a 0 to 60 around 7.6 to 8 seconds. Quarter mile around 15.9 seconds. A top speed at 125 miles per hour. Stopping 70 to 0 at 174 feet. All of these numbers, except for the stopping, is better than the Lexus and the Volkswagen. So you have the blend of everyday driving, performance, luxury, all mixed in this small SUV. Let me know in the comments what you think about the 2022 Mazda CX-30 as we go into the interior, go over the tech, and take this for our test run. Inside the Mazda CX-30, you're going to receive 37.8 inches of headroom, 40.7 inches of legroom, which is going to be more than the Lexus. However, it's less than the Mazda 3 hatch. Red leather bucket front seats. They're heated, 10-way power adjustment for the driver, 4-way manual for the passenger. Perforated. I like the stitch work, and I do like the sporty feel to it. And it goes onto that dashboard. It's more or less a bi-level with the racy contrast stitching in red, leather red in front of it, silver around all of the air vents, and they're seamless on the passenger side with the dual climate control settings that are pretty much within reach. So it makes everything pretty spot on for where it's at. The center cluster, unfortunately, is non-touch. It's an 8.8 inch with your navigation, with Apple CarPlay, Android Auto, Sirius XM, HD radio, AM, FM, streaming, Bluetooth. Switch it to reverse. The lines do not move, and the screen's a little bit smaller. However, the camera projection is very clean. When you're sitting in this, you're going to feel more performance derived than the Lexus and the Volkswagen. You'll still have that luxury as well because everything just wraps onto the door panel. Your elbows are going to be pretty soft. This slides back, then opens up to 2 USB ports and a 12-volt. You have a little storage divider. I mean, it's a pretty sufficient amount of room. Your rotary knob that will do everything for that infotainment. The auto hold that will hold your brake for you at a stoplight, which is a very nice luxury feature. The gloss black and the silver around the gear lever with the leather wrap. I do wish that they added the red contrast stitching on that. It would have gave a little bit more sport essence. We got the sport mode, cup holders. You can easily fit a 16.9 ounce water bottle. I would say maybe a 20 ounce and another storage tray in the front. Leather wrap, 3-spoke steering wheel, multi-function. The gauge cluster does have an array of information and settings that you can change and toggle on the center, which is pretty nice. I just wish it was a full digital readout. That door panel, harder materials on the top, the contrast stitching that runs off the dashboard, integrating into the silver with the one touch up and down for all the windows in the gloss black. You get the contrast stitching in red underneath it, and storage, I would easily fit maybe 5 or 6 16.9 ounce water bottles. We do have a sunroof. Pretty efficient for the most part, especially comparing it to performance, luxury, or everyday use. Let's see how I look in the back. For the back seats, I'm at 38.3 inches of headroom, 36.3 inches of legroom, which is going to be more than the Mazda 3 hatchback. It's going to be less than the Lexus UX, which you would expect that because in the Mazda 3 hatch, it's also a little bit tight, more sport derived. Elbows are going to be pretty soft. Cup holders in the center, maybe a 20 ounce. You do have your 2 air vents in the center and 1 storage behind the passenger seat. Door panel starts off with hard materials. They do strip out a lot of the essence from the front. You keep that contrast stitching in the gloss black, 1 touch up and down, and I would say you can fit maybe 2 to 3 16.9 ounce water bottles. So for a small SUV or a lifted up Mazda 3 hatchback, I mean, it's still pretty durable and usable with a little bit of a rugged twist. Let's see how it looks in the center. Sitting into the center is going to be fun. You have to sit backwards, otherwise your head will not fit at all at 6'3". Leg space is going to be against both of the front seats. It doesn't matter the position if you're 6'3". Sharing foot, leg, butt, shoulder, everything you can think of. It's going to be a tight, passionate fit in the rear. However, it can be done if you need to do it. A nice little attribute is if you move that center console back in the front, you have a little tray here that you could put a tablet, so you have a little bit more storage capacity. It just would make it more harder for somebody to sit in the center. But a small SUV, realistically speaking, you really only want to fit maybe 2, 3 max in the back, and you still have the cargo and the towing to back it. Taking the 2022 Mazda CX-30 Carbon Edition out for our test run. Sky Active G 2.5 liter inline 4 cylinder. It does have a little bit of performance behind it, 186 HP and 186 pound-feet of torque. The 0 to 60, however, is quicker than the luxury line and your everyday drive, so I do like that right off the bat. I do wish that they would have kept the independent rear suspension for the Mazda 3 hatchback, because they would have implemented that in this, because this is more or less like a raised Mazda 3 hatchback. I do like the ground clearance, which is one of the things that I do like about this particular vehicle, because you sit up high, but when you look on the side, you feel like you're sitting down because the door panels are raised. So it gives you a two different feel effect, and it just makes it a little bit more sporty with the luxury mixed in between. As for the visibility in the front, I mean, it is excellent. The window is pretty large, and it's not over the top in the sense where it's like, man, they just went overboard. Right, we're going to put it into sport mode here, and we're gonna stop and give her a little go. And the nice thing about the sport mode is it lets that 6-speed engage at a higher RPM, so you can get a little bit quicker in your speed than your normal driving, because at normal, you see it's a little bit more hesitant, and it doesn't hold the gear as long either. It actually will change a little bit quicker. Now, there is 3 things I like and 3 things that I dislike. Is anything more than that, I'd be buying this vehicle. The first thing, like I was saying, the ground clearance, because I like the Mazda 3 hatchback. Now it's lifted up with 8 inches of ground clearance. The second thing that I like about the vehicle is that side window that they add. I wish they would have added that to the Mazda 3 hatch, because if they did, it would make it a little bit easier for blind spot, and it makes it a lot better here because you do have the blind spot monitoring. However, I like the fact that we have a 3 window. It gives us that SUV feel, a little bit more ruggedness, and it helps us with visibility. The last thing that I like about the vehicle is the seats, how the front holds you. The bolstering on the sides does a great job. Even with the manual seats for the passenger, it still has a fairly nice sit, so it does a great job with that. 3 things that I dislike starts off in the back seat. It is super tight. This is not the widest vehicle, and I get it. It's a small SUV, but it is just tight. Even the Mazda 3 hatchback was super tight as well. The second thing is there's no charging ports. It's almost as if they just want animals back there, because any human is going to want to charge something or feel air. The good thing about this one, though, is unlike the Mazda 3 hatchback, you actually can feel the air circulate a little bit better because the seats are not necessarily as thick in the front. The last thing that I dislike about it goes onto that infotainment screen, and I talk about it a lot. When you put a small reverse camera screen, it just makes it undesirable. Here we go. And braking. And you can see you could do both without any issues. So you do have the performance both ways, and for an everyday practical vehicle, if you're looking to get your feet wet with some luxury and it's not full-blown luxury, this is definitely a great alternative. I will note that if you keep it in the sport mode, you will not get those great gas consumption miles. It will alter that significantly. Plus, you have to use 91 or higher grade octane in order to get the performance out of these vehicles. So that's another thing to know, because the nice thing about Mazda is they usually implement that, especially when you get into the turbo engines. They'll tell you that your horsepower literally is like 10 to 15 less than it normally would be. And when you're looking into luxury vehicles, you know, a lot of people take that out of consideration and don't think that, you know what, I have to spend premium fuel to drive the vehicle to get the optimal MPGs and to get the optimal performance. Turn radius at more or less a stop point is going to receive about 2 in a par lane. Here we go. Comparing it against the Volkswagen Taos, that's an all-new design. It slots a little bit underneath the Tiguan. It's not much smaller, but you're going to have some more space for the rear end cargo. Towing is going to be pretty much the best in this one. Performance-wise, this one will also be the best. Gas consumption, this one would be the best if you're comparing it against luxury lines like Lexus UX. This one has more interior space for the front. It starts lacking when it gets to the second row, but it beats it in cargo and towing as well. So, I mean, there's a lot of pluses in this vehicle in the fact that you could compare it to luxury all at one. In driving in normal, you're gonna hear the engine note around a 2.5 RPM, but it is pretty quiet for the most part. Dynamics, you have the G vectoring plus control, so it is pretty decent with that. It just doesn't have the independent rear suspension, torque and beam, so keep that in mind, even though you have the torque vectoring. I'd like to thank Coast Mazda here at Port Richey for giving us this 2022 Mazda CX-30 Carbon Edition for our car review. If you're already a subscriber, thank you for being part of the Hawkeye community. If not, click that subscribe button, check out the details, the merchandise, the website, and everything we do here at Hawkeye Rock.